And welcome back to the channel where we talk about only good comics. I'm Brant, and this is Friday First. This is that series where we talk about those brand new #1 issues, new character debuts, new story arcs, and the like. And this is 4 books that are coming out on September 25th, 2024. So, um, before I get into all of the books, first I want to test something with you all. I want to see. This is where I normally have my microphone, and I've been getting like some weird sounds and feedback and stuff. So I've moved it closer. Is that better? Or do I really need to be talking like right into it? Because I can't really tell. My settings tell me everything's fine, but then when I listen to it back, it just sounds awful. Except for one time I recorded it with it just like this and it sounded pretty good. So you let me know which way you like. Right in my face, just a short distance away, or my usual setup where it's kind of off to the end of the desk. All right, so also want to remind you that next week is the 52nd episode of Friday First. It is the 1 year anniversary of this show. I have not missed a single week in a year. Knock on wood that I don't miss next week, which would be terrible. A terrible way to break the streak, right? So it's been a fun year doing the show with you all, and I'm so thankful that you all are enjoying it. I appreciate any feedback when you share it, and I appreciate your views. And I hope you're enjoying the content that I'm delivering, and I hope that I've been able to help you decide on some of the comics that you buy on New Comic Day. So, with that said, let's get into some recaps the recaps from the books from last week. I've read 4 of the first issues from last week's show so far. Actually, technically, I read 5, but one of them I didn't care for, so I'm not going to talk about that one. But the 4 that I enjoyed at least somewhat, I'm going to talk about those. So first up, we have Ghost Rider: Spirits of Vengeance. I guess it's just Spirits of Vengeance. This is by Sabir Pirzada with art by Sean Damian Hill, inks by Jay Leiston. And this is kind of a new era for Ghost Rider. So this series kind of promises to have all of the Ghost Rider characters in this, including maybe the more obscure ones, including one that is in like the main part of the story is centered around this character that I'm not familiar with, someone named Michael, who apparently is also a Ghost Rider bearer. We also see, I believe it was Johnny Blaze as well. It may have been Danny, I don't remember, but I know that Danny Ketch, Johnny Blaze, this Michael guy, various others, Robbie Reyes, the Hood, etc., are all going to be in this book. So I'm not usually a huge Ghost Rider fan, just not my character for whatever reason. I know like some of my friends back in the 90s were like really big Ghost Rider and Lobo and those kind of character fans of those kind of characters, and I just wasn't for whatever reason. And I've tried and tried to become a Ghost Rider fan over the years, and it just never sticks, right? But I read this and I like the direction of the book. I like the kind of tone that it was set because it felt very much like, at least this issue, the story that opened up the issue felt very much like one of those like Black Mirror or that kind of thing, like Amazing Stories, going back a while, Hitchhiker, different, kind of anthology kind of vibe with a horror bend to it. That's kind of what it felt like to me, because you start off this story with this scarecrow that has a skull, like a human skull, but it has these weird teeth, these fangs that you see on the cover there, and he's just hanging there. And time passes, and these kids start kind of making fun of it and kind of messing with it, and then that sparks some life in it. And apparently, it's been coming to life here and there throughout however long it's been. And so that kind of sets us in motion to this character coming back and why they have been awoken and what that purpose is. And in the meantime, you get another character who is kind of caught by these sirens, and it's like a throwback to the 1980s run of Ghost Rider, that some obscure storyline that happened there, and for calling back to that and referencing that and actually going back into the meat of that story as well. So the writer here, Sabir, has done his homework and is obviously a Ghost Rider fan, wants to, kind of bring out the best elements of the various eras of Ghost Rider. And I thought it was a really solid first issue. So I enjoyed this, and it gave me enough to come back for a second issue. And when a Ghost Rider book does that for me, that's saying something. So, all right, next up is the new miniseries or series. I'm not sure if it's a miniseries or not. From Daniel Warren Johnson. This is The Moon is Following Us. And the art is by Riley Rossmo, and colors by Mike Spicer. So, and letters by Sean Lee. And so this was an interesting book. I didn't really know what to expect from this one, and I didn't really fully grasp the concept of what the book was going to be. So we open up, and there's obviously a married couple and some other companions that are trying to rescue their daughter. And you get that right away. You get that they're in this strange world that is a mix of fantasy and war. Like, you've got human helicopters and machine guns and that kind of thing, but you've also got mages and fantasy type stuff. You've got horror stuff like vampires and seemingly and stuff like that. So it's really this weird juxtaposition of all these genres kind of cascading together. No pun intended, because there is the Cascade is the villain sect in this series. And so they're battling through all these weird, creatures and getting to a castle and all this stuff. And I start to feel, as we're talking about different worlds, and the way that they explain how they can travel between worlds and how this one is not like theirs and all this stuff, it starts to feel like, okay, they're in a video game. That's kind of what it felt like for me. But as we go on, we learn what actually is happening, which is kind of that, but taken in a different direction. So it's, I would compare this to like Ready Player One meets The Surrogates meets, I don't know what else, meets World of Warcraft. It's just a really strange story, and elements of it spoke to me because it's very similar to a story that I came up with. Parts of it are that I came up with years ago when my brother had a skateboarding accident. He cracked his skull open and was, in kind of a coma for a little while, and it was really scary. He was 14 years old, and when he came out of it and stuff, he and I had kind of been working on, talking about some other characters before that. So I was like, okay, I got inspired and created this character and this concept based on someone that's kind of, anyway, elements of this story reminded me of that, and it kind of made me want to revisit that at some point. So I appreciated that. At the same time, this is not my favorite Daniel Warren Johnson story that I've read so far. And granted, we're only one issue in, but I do like the overall concept. And I like that we've already created some kind of, not really a rift, but some kind of tension between the mom and the dad. And obviously a sense of urgency and trauma with what's happening with their child. And then it, opens up a whole bunch of other questions as where all these other characters came from. Are they people in their lives? What are they exactly? So really interesting first issue. Not my favorite read of the week so far, but I am interested enough to continue on at this point because I'm curious to see more about how they got into this situation. That's as detailed as I can be, still remaining a little bit vague. So, all right, next up we got Dazzler issue number 1. This is by Jason Liu, who I'm not familiar with. I think comes from Entertainment. I'm not 100% sure on that. And art is by Rafael Loureiro, letters by Ariana Maher. And, or Mayer, not sure how you pronounce that. But so Dazzler, obviously very much in the zeitgeist right now. from rumors leading up to a certain movie, which I have still not seen and still have not been spoiled on. But whatever. Anyway, there's like a reference, like a slight kind of nod reference in the I don't know what you call it when it's after the story. It's usually like a forward is before it, but afterward, is it just the afterword? I'm not exactly sure what it's called. But anyway, Jason Liu, the writer, writes in there, and he's talking about wanting to appeal to all the different eras of Dazzler, and he puts in parentheses wink. So, take from that what you will if you've not seen the movie either. But anyway, getting back to the comic. This took elements of one of my favorite recent Dazzler stories, which was her on tour, and there was actually a couple. There was the one with Spider Gwen, where they kind of interacted while Dazzler was on tour and all of that stuff, and then I think there was another one where she was playing a concert and everything. So the interesting thing about this though is we're post Krakoa, so there's a lot of mutant hate. There's like protesters outside of her venue and all of that stuff, trying to hate on the performance and hate on mutants and all of that stuff going on. In the meantime, she's got a new kind of entourage. She's got Jamie Matrix, who's kind of security. She's got Sophia, who's Wind Dancer from like X-Men Academy or New Mutants or whatever it was way back in the day. She's kind of doing like PR and social media, marketing manager, all that stuff. You've got Domino. I think she's actually head of security. I think Matrix is just, I don't know what Matrix is doing a lot of stuff because he's a multiple man, right? And you've got Strong Guy as kind of I forget what you call a roadie, kind of carrying all the equipment and everything. And then you got Shark Girl, who is the drummer. So it's a really cool kind of dive into C-list characters in the Marvel Universe with Dazzler center stage. And the whole message is around don't be too controversial, but, be enough controversial. And, you got to be careful with the appearance. We're going to give an image inducer to Shark Girl, all this kind of stuff. And in the meantime, let's try not to fight because we don't want them to see you violent. But obviously she's a mutant in this post-Krakoan world, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. There's villains everywhere, so when a villain attacks, of course, it's like in wrestling, you never have a contract signing without somebody turning over the table and a fight breaking out. Well, in the Marvel Universe, you never have a concert without a villain crashing it and, causing all kinds of chaos. It's that kind of thing. I love that analogy. I'm patting myself on the back right now. That's kind of funny. Anyway, but anyway, I like the message in it. And Jason Liu actually wrote an original song, posted the lyrics in the back for this song that she sings throughout this battle. And it's very apropos to what's going on. I thought it was a really solid first issue. I had a lot of fun with it, which is what I was hoping for from this book. And if it continues on this path, I'm all in for this, and I loved it. So, and the last one that I read is the Tin Can Society, issue number 1 from Image Comics. This is from the Giant Generator imprint, which is Rick Remender's imprint, and this is written and illustrated by Francesco Mobili, and so all the writing and art by this single creator who does a phenomenal job. The interiors are gorgeous. You can see it from the cover here. It's a really interesting story about a superhero who dies very brutally. And it's so there's this kid who is the new kid in school. He's a black kid with I forget what the injury is. I think it's some kind of I forget what it's called, but it's like this pocket forms on your spine, so it leaves you very vulnerable. So he's got like those I forget what you call them, but those things like Forrest Gump wore when he was younger, and had like the braces around his legs and around his waist, and had the things he held and all of that. So and he, because of it, he also couldn't eat like whole foods. He would get choked on them. And so these other kids that are already there, like three boys and a girl, kind of befriend him, and they kind of bond. I guess over kind of being outcast or whatever, but they're also, some of them are really smart. And later on, that kind of plays into the story with like engineering and science and all this stuff. And he was adopted, and he was raised by scientists who were also Christians, so they didn't believe in doctors, and all this is all these levels and layers before you get to like page 5. And so this kid has this tin can where he puts like all these things that he can't have, can't eat, can't play with, all this stuff in this tin can, and he buries it at the edge of town. And these friends, they just kind of open the can, and they'll eat and pass the objects around, just kind of play with it. And so they dubbed themselves the Tin Can Society. And that's very early on. That's not really a huge spoiler, but that's kind of where the name comes from. And I thought that was really clever. It was very like throwback to 80s, kind of Goonies type movies and stuff like that, with a very dark story, because the very first page opens up on this brutal, visually savage death of this character who grew up to become a superhero with the super suit. And we get to the point where, of these friends, they all have like these individual connections with our character, and they also all have some kind of tie to the way he died. So the plot is, it's possible that one of the Tin Can Society killed their own, and now we're gonna go through the mystery of trying to solve that murder. And I'm a sucker for a murder mystery. I'm a sucker for kind of the friend group that grows up, and later you learn all kinds of things about them. I don't know what kind of story type that is, or what you categorize that as, but I love those types of stories. So this hit every single note for me. And right now, as it stands, and I've read I'd say about 7 or 8 of my books this week. Right now, this is my pick of the week. Hands down, no contender. I still have a lot of books to read. It was a big week this week. But so far, this is my number 1 pick. And if you have not checked this out, I highly recommend it. It's a really good read. So, and it's also beautiful. So, all right, that is it for the recaps from last week. So let's get into our firsts for this week. All right, we're coming in with our first of 3 honorable mentions. This is Violent Flowers issue number 1. I think this might have been delayed, so don't shoot me if this doesn't actually come out, because that's the risk sometimes with these things. But anyway, this is from Maria Lovett, who did other books that I've talked about before, and Crave, Luna, Porcelain. You can read it right there on the screen. Those are some of the previous works. I stuck with Crave for a little bit. The others I didn't really check out, but I definitely wanted to shout this out for any fans of Lovett's work. If you're a fan of any of those series, you'll want to check this one out. Next honorable mention goes to Old Dog Operations issue number 1. This is by Declan Shalvey. Also has stories by Charles Soule, Rory McConville, and PJ Holden. And Sumre Kesgan, Leonardo Romero, art by John McRae, Matthias Bergara, David O'Sullivan, Gavin Goudry, and Luke Sparrow. So this was first in the Image. What is it called? Yeah, Image number 1. I was like looking through the second paragraph, and it's right there in the first sentence. Image number 1, the anthology that introduced all these stories. It first came in there, and this is another like anthology style book. Has a bunch of different stories, 64 pages for $7.99. And so if you were a fan of the Old Dog story in Image number 1, you might want to check it out. Plus, a bunch of all-star creators in this book. And the last honorable mention is Survival Street, The Radical Left, issue number 1. This is basically volume 2 of Survival Street from Dark Horse. James Asmus and Jim Festanti are the writers. Abilai, I'm totally butchering this one. Kusanov is the artist. But if you like that first volume, I think I read the first issue. I don't think I continued with it personally. But if you did enjoy it and you want more of it, here it is. All right, so let's get into those ranked books, or rated books, I should say. First up is Commercial Space issue number 1 from Scout Comics, and I just want to put a caveat here. Sometimes the Scout books get delayed; they get pushed, a week, 2 weeks. That happens with a lot of smaller publishers. So just be aware that if this is not on the shelves, it could have been delayed. Might come out at a future week, and if it does, I probably won't talk about it again. So just take note of it here if the concept sounds interesting to you. This is by Lisa Miller and Trent Miller are co-writing it, and Michaela Cacciatore is the artist. But it says it's for fans of Office and Parks and Recreation. So if you're fans of that kind of story, we've got a 30-something couple in rural. I can't say the word. Rural. Man, wow. In Florida, and they manage this apartment complex, and they have a bunch of wacky tenants that they kind of have to manage. Rent's due, and so they got to figure something out. So it sounds kooky and fun and crazy, and just if you're a fan of that kind of comedy, you might want to check it out. For me, I'm going to give it a possibly good. I'm not familiar with the creative team. The cover looks fun. Like I said, the concept sounds fun. Just don't know what to think about this one. Here we are, finally at the end, the finale to the Infinity Watch saga that has been going across various annuals. I think this was like a 8-part story, maybe more. I don't really recall. I'm still behind on it, so I just wanted to shout it out. It says the Infinity Stone Bearers are all brought together for the first time. So all this time we've been telling stories about different bearers and all this stuff. And now we've got them all together, possibly even that Death Stone one. I don't know. Like I said, I'm behind, but I'm very curious to see how this all plays out. Eventually, I will read all of these. But for this one, I'm giving a potentially good. Next up is Revolution 9, issue number 1 from Mad Cave Studios. This is Mark London, who you may be familiar with from X Factor, from, what was that? Series called I read not too long ago. Several years ago, he wrote Flintstones. He writes Second Coming from Ahoy. What is that? What is the name of that series? There was a series from God, I can't even think of who the publisher was now. Anyway, Mark London, look him up. Done a lot of stuff. Usually has some kind of commentary in his work, but he has created a brand new universe starting with this book. And I believe these are, never mind, that's another book I'm thinking of. But anyway, he also writes like Hunt, Kill, Repeat, Battle Cats, Knights of the Golden Sun, different Mad Cave books. But this is the first book in this new universe called The Underworld. And this is Revolution 9. Mark is writing it, and the art is by Carlos Reno. It says, after years as an assassin for the Order of Nine, an ancient order dating back almost 3,000 years, Velveteen has turned her back on the very organization that saved her. Tasked with the murder of otherwise innocent hacker Jasper Dean, she sets off to save his life and discover the terrible secret that marked him for death. So now this whole order is after Velveteen. They got to escape their grasp. So sounds like a thriller to me, and I'm a big action thriller guy. I love a female lead and protagonist, and this whole story of kind of turning on your organization and kind of going on the run kind of thing, so you don't fully know if you can trust this person or not. Sounds like a fun time to me. I like Mark London's writing. I like that this is the first series in an entire universe now that we're building that has this kind of sounds like a supernatural element to it, since it's called the Underworld and all of that. So or it could be like the criminal underworld, and it could be that. So either way, I'm down for that. I'm definitely curious about this one for sure, and I'm going to check it out. And I'm going to give this one a promisingly good, because it ticks a lot of my boxes. And when Mark London's on, I love Mark London's work. So there you go. Promisingly good for me. And by the way, if you are new to this series, my rankings, I have a 4P system. It went through a few changes. If you went back to like early episodes, it was really confusing in the beginning, and I finally settled on this, and people seem to like it. So I have 4 ratings that go from, and they're all good, but they go from like basically I know this is going to be good down to I really don't have enough information to be confident that it's good, but I think there's a chance. So I go from possibly good, which is that, to potentially good, which I think there are enough elements that I can see a little bit of potential to know that I'm going to check it out at least. Promisingly good means there's some kind of factor, whether it's a creator or a character or a story element, that I'm like, this sounds pretty good for me, right up my alley, that I'm pretty sure this is going to be good, but I'm not 100% sure. And then positively good is the rating that I give when I absolutely think hands down there's no way this is going to be a bad book. So that's my rating system for anybody new to the show. Next up is Lobo Cancellation Special Issue number 1. This is written by Kyle Starks with art by Kyle Holtz or Hotz. I can't remember how to pronounce that, even though he's from the area that I grew up in, I believe. And I think I'm pretty sure I've done conventions with him. Anyway, Lobo Cancellation Special. It is an interesting concept because it's very throwback in the way that it's presented. Even the cover here, buy this comic or a child might see it. That's like something that you would have seen on a Lobo comic back in the day, in the 90s. It doesn't give you a whole lot to go on here. It just says it's Freakazoids at DC ambush you. It's a scummiest book this side of Uranus, and skull crunching, crotch punting, all that stuff. It doesn't really give you anything. But if you're a Lobo fan, you like Lobo stories, you're gonna like this. So go check it out. For me, I'm not the hugest Lobo fan, like I mentioned earlier in the show, but I did want to make people aware of this book coming out. So I'm actually going to give this one a possibly good. I am a little familiar with the creative team's work. So I definitely think it has, the possibility of some good times here, especially if you're a Lobo fan. Next, we have Venom War Daredevil issue number 1. This is by Chris Condon with art by Lam Medina. I typically like Lam Medina's artwork, I believe, but I have not been following the main Daredevil series for a while. So I have no idea what's going on with Matt Murdock or how he's affected by the Venom War at all. So I don't actually know if I'm going to pick this one up because I'm trying to be a little bit more picky with the Venom War tie-ins. So far, I've been reading most of them, and I've been enjoying them for the most part. So that's why it's made this list. Also, I want everybody to know that is picking up all the Venom War stuff, that there is a new one on the horizon here. But for me, I'm going to give it a possibly good, again, because I'm not too familiar with the writer that's writing this that I recall. And again, I'm not too tuned in with what's going on with Matt Murdock or how this affects him. So this next one, I think I completely forgot this existed or was coming out, but this is from Image Comics, is by Chip Zdarsky, as well as artist Kagan McLeod. And obviously throwback to EC Comics, very similar, kind of title, cover dressing and title, layout, logo design, all that stuff. Miniseries premiere. So obviously it's going to be horror. Says, brings you a terrifying tale of a repressed housewife deciding to take matters into her own hands and rescue her daughter from a local psychedelic cult. But the true terror is not what anyone expects. Then you also have another story from James Stocco, featuring a severed hand, and the Lynx one writer will go to discover the truth. So very classic horror comic tales. If that is your thing, you'll definitely want to check it out. If you're a Chip Zdarsky fan, you'll want to check it out as well. For me, I am a Chip Zdarsky fan. I'm not so much a horror fan or EC Comics style storytelling fan. Not really my genre, but I'm going to give it a potentially good just because of the creators involved. And, it is that time of year and all of that good stuff. So, yeah, check it out. Creepshow. Speaking of that time of year, we have Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue number 1. So last week it was issue 0, which was a reprint of the last, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale collaboration. Now Jeff Loeb is back writing this, but Eduardo Rizzo is the artist, and with colors by Dave Stewart, letters by Richard Starkings of Comicraft. So obviously, we're going back into the Long Halloween world, and we're telling the story of the last Halloween. So Gotham City learns to fear Halloween once more as Jim Gordon's life once again destroyed. Batman and Robin's teamwork is put to the test, and can anyone be trusted? Really not much to say there. If you were a fan of the Long Halloween, you might want to check this out. For me, I still have not read issue 0 yet. Like I said, I've only read a few of my books so far. I'm going to give this one a potentially good. Jeff Loeb is a fantastic writer, veteran writer, wrote a lot of stuff that I've enjoyed. So, yeah, potentially good for me. Not much else to say. Next, we have The Magic Order, Volume 5, Issue Number 1. This is the final volume of this Miller World epic story about the magic side of his shared universe. Obviously by Mark Millar, or Miller, however you pronounce it, or want to pronounce it, with art by Matteo Buffagni. But this book usually has beautiful art. I don't remember if Matteo is the continuing artist or not. It's been a while since I've read it. I haven't read any of Volume 4 yet, so I still have to go back and read that. So I'm coming at this just as a fan of the previous volumes. But in this volume, Cordelia is going to die, and there's nothing she can do about it. So she's broken the rules. Now she's got to pay her price, just like all her friends, and we're going to tell that story now in this very final volume of the Magic Order. Been a long time coming, years and years of this series. That at one time was in development with Netflix. Don't know if it still is or not. But I really enjoyed this. It's not my favorite of the Miller World books, but I do still enjoy it. I love that it's a family of magic practicers that can't get involved in the larger universe at hand. They just kind of have to deal with their own stuff. Don't know really what the point of that is, but it's an interesting concept. But anyway, for me, I am giving this one a promisingly good, just based on my past experience with the first 2 or 3 volumes. Next is an interesting one that I did not see coming. Knights vs. Samurais issue 1 from Image Comics. This is by David Desmalchian and art by Federico Mele. And this is under the guidance of Todd McFarlane, it says in the description here. So I don't know if he was a mentor to the creative team here, or if it's from his imprint or not. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't say Todd McFarlane Productions on the cover here that I can see. But anyway, this is about a knight, Sir Charles Ward, who became a knight. He's nicknamed the Dragon Butcher, and he's leading his legion of warriors to the Far East, to feudal Japan. He's got a lot of self-doubt, trying to overcome that and all this grief that are haunting him. And he's going to come in, him and his warriors are coming into contact with a force they've never dealt with before, which are the samurai. So it's really interesting story that, is magic and warfare and, 2 very distinct types of warriors that don't often clash. So it could be visually gorgeous. I don't know. That sounds like a very interesting kind of project to draw. So I haven't seen interiors for this book yet, but I'm very curious about it now. to see, just the visual of samurais battling knights. I think that's pretty interesting, and the contrast in styles, fighting styles especially, could be fun to see. So curious about this one at the very least. And I'm going to give this one a possibly good, just again because I'm not familiar with the creative team at all. And the concept could, it could be hit or miss. I just don't know. So possibly good for me for Knights versus Samurai. Next is another book from Image Comics, and it is a one-shot, the first in a series of one-shots under this banner, The Horizon Experiment. So from what I understand, it's people from TV, film, other superstars that are coming in and telling their point of view stories on different concepts in a series of one shots. So this one is the Manchurian, issue number 1, and it is by I totally am going to butcher these names, so I apologize. Pornsak Pichilshote. I'm so sorry. I know I got that wrong, but that's how it's spelled. You can see it for yourself right there. With art by the Dodsons, Terry and Rachel Dodson, letters by Jeff Powell. This is kind of a take on James Bond, but from a Chinese lens. So you have this Chinese character who is going into this genre. It doesn't really give a whole lot of information here. Just says it's the Manchurian, a Chinese James Bond running covert missions in America for the enemy. So really interesting take. It caught my attention. Just the logo is kind of cool. The visual with the stark contrast of the character popping off on the I guess it's technically tricolor because you got kind of a pale yellow and the white and the red. But it popped off the page to me. It caught my attention and made me very curious. And I don't know what to expect from this going forward. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out and or at least flip through it and see what it's all about. But I'm giving this a potentially good. Again, not familiar with the creatives, but you definitely caught my attention. So congratulations. Next, we have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers slash or versus or meets. I'm not exactly sure. Usagi Yojimbo, issue 1. This is from Boom Studios. And this is a collaboration that I never thought, never considered it existing. I was never sitting around reading, TMNT or Usagi or anything and being like, I wonder what it'd be like for Usagi to meet the Power Rangers. But we did have Power Rangers TMNT a couple times, so it kind of makes sense to, let's push it a little further. Definitely in the martial arts, wheelhouse and everything. So cool. This is written by Ryan Parrott, who, did phenomenal Power Rangers stories, and I trust anything Power Rangers that Ryan Parrott writes. Art by Sean Daly, colors by James Finner, and letters by Ed Dukeshire of Digital Webbing fame. So this is there's a Rita repulsive attack, surprise, surprise. And the morphers in the midst of the attack take the Power Rangers back to the Edo era of Japan, where they come into contact, obviously, with Usagi Yojimbo. And so I don't know what's going to happen here, if we're going to see Usagi be able to use a morpher or what's going to happen, but we're celebrating 40 years of Yojimbo. So it's pretty cool to see the Rabbit Ronin in the mix with the Morphin Masters, or well, not really Masters, but the Morphin, the Power Rangers. I was trying to think of a clever nickname for them, and it didn't work. So anyway, because Ryan Parrott's writing this, though, I'm going to give this one a promisingly good. I'm just a big fan of Ryan Parrott's Power Rangers run, and if this is in any way remotely as good as the first Power Rangers TMNT crossover, then it's going to be a really fun read. So sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. My mouth's getting a little dry, but we're nearing the end now, so we're in good shape. Speaking of TMNT and crossovers, we have Masters of the Universe / Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles of Grayskull. This is the crossover that young me would kill for, right? These are two franchises that I grew up with, different time periods, but very much in my viewing habits through the years, my reading habits as well. I love both of these franchises, and to see them clash is just, that's just cool. Seeing the Turtles in Eternia, if that's what we're doing, I'm good with that. So the creative team is Tim Seeley. So you've got a very experienced, very well loved writer here, Freddie Williams II, doing the art here as well. It's going to be a gorgeous. Colors by Andrew Dahlhaus, who is a phenomenal colorist as well, and world design, really strong lettering house as well. So you got a top-notch creative team on this, coming from Dark Horse, where they've been doing some decent stuff with Masters of the Universe. So TMNT, they come across Kane Shredder, who are making a deal with Skeletor, of all people, of course, because Kang is always dealing with warlords from other worlds and everything. So obviously they're going to Eternia, and TMNT is going to team up with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and take on Shredder and Skeletor together. That sounds like a freaking fun time to me. I'm all here for it. I'm all about it. I'm ready for it. So I'm giving this one a promisingly good as well. And I cannot wait for this one. This is going to be fun. So, and that's it for the first issues. I'll share real quickly with you a handful of other books that I'm also looking forward to. Just pop the list up here. Green Arrow number 16. It is an Absolute Power tie-in. It's been a pretty solid series. And right now we're dealing with the family, trying to understand why Ollie is working with Amanda and that whole thing. So that's where we're headed with that. We've got Namor number 3. First 2 issues were really solid. He battled one of the kings in the last issue. Now he's come face to face with another one who happens to be a former friend of his. So that's going to be interesting. Uncanny X-Men number 3. First issue was really, really good. Second issue was decent, but I wanted a little bit more out of it. So hopefully here we get that, and we get the introduction of Nightcrawler to the team. Absolute Power Origins number 3. The first 2 issues, really, really strong story about Amanda Waller's kind of rise to power and the reasons being behind it and everything. Just a really powerful story, and I can't wait for the 3rd installment of that. Feral number 6. We are finally back. Been a little break. Now we've got a brand new story arc. Patch isn't doing too good, but I'm looking forward to where we go with the story now, and what's going to happen to these animals now that they seem to be dropping like flies. And Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 9, the Sinister Six, make their first strike. So I can't wait for that. This has been a fantastic series as well, and I've been looking forward to the Sinister Six coming into play. So that is it. That's all the books that I've got to talk about. Next week, 1-year anniversary. Still trying to line up, see if I can get some guests on. If not, it's just going to be a live stream. We're going to have some fun, talking about comics and everything. So I hope you are enjoying this. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Always helps, always makes me feel good. Of course, hit that subscribe notification bell so you don't miss any of the content going up on this channel. Of course, you can follow me across social media at OnlyGoodComics, or type in onlygoodcomics.com to take you right back to this channel where we talk about only good comics. Until next time, for the 1-year anniversary, thanks for watching. Take care, keep reading those comics, and I'll see you soon. Bye.